Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Change Your Mind podcast. I'm your host, Chris Ashley, where we explore the intersection between personal development, spirituality, and science. And today we're going to talk about a really cool topic that is walk-ins. But first, a couple quick announcements. Check out the links in the show notes. You can find a link to my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It's in paperback, ebook, audiobook. You'll find all of my free workshops. You'll find free downloads on my website. Courses, ways to work with me, lots of cool stuff. Be sure to follow me on social media, like, comment, share, subscribe. Let's spread the good word. So I'm really excited for my guest today. My guest is Pauline McGuire, and she is a trailblazer in multidimensional sovereignty, author of Who's Holding the Microphone? A Journey to Physical, Energetic, Mental, and Emotional Sovereignty. Pauline McGuire is a recognized master NLP practitioner, a master hypnotherapist, a master timeline therapist, a yoga teacher, a Reiki level 2, an Akashic records reader, and master meditator. We've got a lot of masterful things in there, so I'm excited to ask about some of those.
And when the title master that's the title given to me. Those aren't titles I claim. They're like, this is what you've achieved.
Totally. Yeah, I know with things like Reiki, that's like the top level.
They give you the titles, but you don't.
Totally understand. Okay. Her journey from combating debilitating chronic illnesses to discovering her path to healing has been inspiring. Today, she is not only fully recovered, but also leads an exciting, joyful, and adventurous life in Mexico. Her work transcends borders as she liberates individuals worldwide from the shackles that limit them. Employing her unique modalities, Pauline empowers her clients to live their most authentic and joyful expression. Welcome, Pauline. I'm so excited to have you.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start with the same question I ask everyone is, I want to hear what your origin story is. And I was just telling you before we started recording, I love starting with origin stories because pretty much everyone has a similar theme, and that's that some hardship they went through, some adversity, some challenge, some trauma, some heartbreak led to their awakening or led to them reinventing themselves or stepping onto the path they're meant to be on. And I think it's so good for listeners to hear that if they are in a dark time right now, something really beautiful can come of it. So please tell us what led you on this path.
So just in a nutshell, pretty much a lifetime of illness, discomfort. Like I didn't know at the time what it was, but never feeling always that something was wrong or off. Never feeling kind of, I would even say safe. I don't think I ever felt safe. There was always this pervasive feeling that something was off or wrong, and that things weren't the way they were, that the way things were is not the way they were meant to be. That was so lots of illness, endometriosis, age 11. They wanted to do a hysterectomy on me at age 18 to give me some kind of quality of life. I was being hospitalized every month. I was told I would never have children. And then I went on to conceive naturally. Back issues, back surgery in my 30s with a severely herniated disc. I had lost use of my left leg. I had no control over my left leg. I had nerve damage down to my toes. And through kind of the surgery and doing the work, like doing the physiotherapy and everything, I had regrown new neural networks. So regained all use of my leg. And my first instance of spontaneous healing was, there was a patch about the size of my cell phone on the back of my left thigh that I had no feeling in. Everywhere else I had regained feeling. And that was my first instance of spontaneous healing, was when that healed. And that was during my master NLP training. Wow. And I felt it. I had set the intention that it was going to happen. And then I was woken up in the middle of the night with this just burning sensation. And that was my first instance of spontaneous healing that I can recall. Life just continued. I was in a head-on collision in 2013, head and neck injuries, and things spiraled really badly. I couldn't get my head off the pillow. I was ended up being diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And at that point in time, things were so low for me that the only hope I could see was getting the label and taking the medication. And
Because then you had an answer at least, right? There was like something that
then I
someone
had
said.
I had something.
Yeah.
And I had some glimmer of hope. And that's a pretty low bar,
Yeah.
right? When you're looking at a narcotic or whatever it is, a pharmaceutical. But that was what kept me going, and got the label, got the prescription, and I took the one dose and I ended up in the hospital. My body said, absolutely not. This is not what this is about. And any control I had at that point was gone. I was on the floor sobbing, and I just did not know what to do. I didn't give up, but I gave in to whatever needed to happen. If that makes sense to you.
It does. And it's almost like a surrendering, it sounds like.
It was like, okay, I got nothing left. I have no ideas left. I have nothing left. So wherever I'm going, I'm going. And then very, very quickly, my thoughts changed from, I need this medicine or whatever it was. I have no hope. I don't know what to do, to, if my body is supposed to heal itself, why isn't it? Very a strong guidance. And got set on that path. So I would say that was probably the turning point. And started on a path of yoga. They had sent me to an 8-week course for fibromyalgia to learn how to live with it. And the very first doctor who was presenting said, fibromyalgia is, when you exercise, it's painful, but it's not harmful. And that's all I needed to know. He's like, you've got to keep going. You've got to break through this cement. And I did. And I kept going from there. Did my Akashic records training, did my MNLP practitioner training, which is when I realized my body was in survival. It didn't matter what I was doing with my thought processes. My body was in survival. Started to meditate, started to do my, I did my master level NLP training. And then I went to my first meditation retreat, which led me to start to do a 30-day walking meditation challenge at the beginning of January 2020. And within weeks of that, I got quite sick. And what had been underlying a gluten sensitivity, because I had been gluten-free for years at this point, was Crohn's. And did not know it was there. And through a series of emotional and energetic clearings, cleared the Crohn's in 5 days.
Wow.
Yes.
And that's autoimmune for listeners that don't know what that is, right?
That's ulcers in your small bowel.
Okay.
And it's incredibly painful and debilitating. So that's a little bit of my story on how I got here and what I know is possible. And it's just gotten better since then. Now it's healing really old stuff, really, stuff that's it's not even an illness. It's just there must be some energy there because that's not aligned.
When you just said a moment ago that now it's so much better, you just lit up into this like beautiful smile, and it was like I could see it just like radiating off of you.
You're throwing off shackles.
Yeah, that's
because we're never meant to live like that. And in my book, it shows you before and after pictures. It shows you When I did the walking meditation, so I started with this 30-day walking meditation. I ended up going for like 724 days.
Of walking
Walked,
meditation?
yes,
Wow.
across 3 countries. My whole life changed, and I have pictures in the book that show at the beginning and what I look like now, and you can tell it's a different person. Around day 400 of walking meditation, actually, I won't go there yet. So that's the history.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing all of that. That's so much for one person to go through. And you said something that kind of popped out at me. You said we're never meant to live like this. And I agree. You know, I think our bodies are perfect, whole, complete, lacking nothing, always able to heal ourselves. And illness is a sign that something's out of alignment, or we're not on the path we're meant to be on, or we have repressed emotions of some kind. So what do you think was the spiritual purpose of going through all of that illness?
So what I know now is when I started to do my Akashic Records training, that's when I first found out, and in that modality, it's called soul shifting. That's when I first found out about the concept that souls could shift, could switch the body. One soul could shift out of the body and another one could shift in. So, which I found fascinating. That was never something in my awareness before. And then all my clients, the clients showing up were soul shifters, which was very cool. So that was a very accepted, normal thing. I had never shown as one ever. And
can I ask how someone shows as one?
So when I do an Akashic Records reading, that's part of what we do. That's part of the protocol, is finding out if they're a mono-souled. So one soul in this body for this lifetime, or more than one. Okay. And then that's at the very beginning of the reading. So that if there's more than one, then the process and the protocol is different, of identifying how many, which one is in the body. You can only ever read the soul that's in the body. So that's, and in that modality, it's either a teaching contract where one soul teaches the other, or a protection contract where one soul protects the other. So I knew about this. All my clients were soul shifters, and I had never shown as one, ever. Doesn't matter who was reading me. Nobody, I'd never shown. So I start the walking meditation, and the voices in my head are nasty and just awful, abusive. And I know through my NLP that how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if those voices were there in that instant, in that circumstance, those voices are there all the time. And that's what fueled me to overcome them and get going. And it's like, it was brutal and daunting, but I knew that whether I did the walking meditation or not, the voices were saying that. So I started the walking meditation, kept going. Around things got amazing. So many amazing things happened. However, there was also times where it was like a switch flipped, and I could see very distinct things happening. And there was a beautiful, quiet little voice that was like, "You're doing so beautifully. Just keep going." And then other voices that are like, "You're such an idiot. Who do you think you are?" And there was this cast of characters. And I didn't know, there was days I felt bipolar. There's days I felt schizophrenic. and I would observe my behavior, and I would have these amazing days where I'd be riding my bicycle and eating, you know, foods that I love. There's like this one kale salad that I love, and signing up for a course, and those things light me up. And then the next day, I can't get out of bed, and I've eaten 6 donuts.
Hmm.
And I have no control. None. You know, everyone's like, "Oh, you're not trying hard enough." I'm really freaking honest with myself. I had 0 control over what was going on. And things got really bad between day 400 and day 500 of walking meditation. That's when I was like, okay, I got to do something about this. I don't know what to do. Fast forward, find a gentleman in Thailand that someone had sent me one of his newsletter emails, and he deals with walk-ins, which is another name for soul shifting. And I'm just going to quickly say here, so if you look at the body as a house with walk-ins, the house can change owners. So one owner can leave and another owner can come in. When a soul is born into a body, that's called being born in, as opposed to walking in, where you walk in at some point in time after birth. Was pretty desperate, emailed this guy, booked the appointment with him, and I sent him like an email with all of my puzzle pieces, all of the things I noticed but I couldn't make sense of. And I sent it to him, and he responded back, and he's like, "Oh, you are so getting messed with." And he said, "Have you done this clearing?" And I said, "No, because I've never shown as a walk-in." And he said, "Pauline, that clearing is to clear the interference, letting you see that you're a walk-in."
Hmm.
And we had a 12-hour time difference, and our appointment was like 6 or 7 the next morning for me. So that afternoon I did the clearing, and it was like clouds parted. I sat down in front of my computer and I did my data collection, which I've done for hundreds of clients. And what I got was 8 occupants.
So can there be multiple souls in a body at once? Like you had 8 people in there?
There's never meant to be. It's only ever meant to be 1 out, 1 in.
Okay.
And that was the world that I had been taught. Never had anyone talked about there being more than one. And so so we get on the call. I email on the spreadsheet. We get on the call, and he said, "Okay, I looked at your stuff." He said, "You get 8. I get that you're 9 looking at the other 8." So this is an interfered with walk-in. And the outgoing soul is kept. It's not kind of allowed to leave. And interference then gets embodied. So with the first interfered with walk-in, you then have 2 souls and interference.
So
And
can I just interrupt and ask, why would that happen? Like what's the plan behind that?
walking in is a highly advanced technique for high dimensional souls.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You've done a few rounds on Earth before you're using that method to incarnate. In my model of the world, the people that use that method to incarnate are here to affect positive change in the world.
Right. That's what I've always heard too.
And oh, my whole body just broke out in goosebumps. So that is a way of stopping it. If we can mess with your shift, with your walk-in, you're essentially in a straitjacket. Because what happens is the body is only ever meant to have one soul in it. And when there's more than one, plus throw in whatever interference showed up, you have an energetic soup. And it is a mind bend. Nothing, it's like having one very clear signal going out, and now you're interfering with it. So even you're not yourself.
So are these like evil entities coming in, or are they just regular souls that have an agenda? Like who are these people that are trying to stop these higher dimensional souls?
These are energies. I don't look at anything as good or bad. I
Yeah.
look at it as what's their agenda.
Right. I agree with that.
So their agenda is, I mean, you can look at many different things. The agenda might be that to keep the status quo. Well, we don't want change on the planet. There's been a lot of effort put into making Earth the way it is right now, which is never how it was intended to be.
Right. I've heard that as well.
Who's benefiting from Earth being the way it is right now? I can pretty much guarantee you those are the energies at play in interfering with walk-ins.
Got it.
I don't name the energies until I'm actually working with a client, because there can be a lot of fear packed around the names. And guess who packed the fear around it? They did.
Yeah.
So we don't look at it. Religion, oh my gosh, religion has packed so much fear. So I was, at that point in time, I believe there was 7 occupants in the body. We did the clearings. I slept for, I think, 5 hours, and I woke up, and for the first time I could ever remember, my head, there was quiet in my head. I did not know that I had a committee in my head.
So now are you the soul that was meant to walk in, that higher dimensional soul? Is that who's in your body right now? Is that who I'm talking to?
There have been shifts since then. So when you walk that path, so there's different kinds of shifts. So if you look at the oversoul as a diamond, it's too big to fit in a body.
Right.
Right? So a facet of that oversoul will come in.
I write about that in my book, actually.
Do you? All right. Yeah. Perfecto.
Yeah.
So what can happen is, the oversoul sends in a facet, and different types of shifts are that facet can leave and another facet comes in, and you explore different aspects of life. Or what can happen, which has been my last 2 shifts, is an additional facet gets sent in for an expansion. So nothing leaves, but it's all your oversoul. So there's no issue. So you can have a facet swap, you can have a facet addition, and many times it's because there's been interference. That whole diamond says, we can't have the experiences we came here to have. The entire diamond leaves and a whole new diamond comes in. Okay. And that's when you're going to see really drastic changes. You can see changes in eye color, sexual orientation. My blood type changed.
That's totally what one of my questions was. Like, I've always heard it's pieces of the same oversoul, or the same, I call it a higher self, but that makes sense if there's a completely new oversoul coming in.
There can be. And that's what happened to me, that when I talked about that shift for me, with the going from, wanting the fibromyalgia meds to, if my body's supposed to heal itself, why isn't it? That was a new diamond.
Because your thinking changed so much. So I think I told you this on our preliminary call. The book that led to my spiritual awakening in 2002 is called The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life. It was written by a man named Drunvalo Melchizedek, and he was a walk-in. And that was like when I had my spiritual awakening, when I was first introduced to all of this, I was introduced to walk-ins, and he almost died. And he was laying in the hospital, and his nephew was there and said something to him, and he turned to him and he said, "I'm sorry, your uncle's not here anymore." Like, that was like one of the first things he said. It gives me like goosebumps to think about. Okay, so do you have the memories of all of these other souls who have occupied Pauline's life? Do you like have Pauline's memories, or are they do you remember them through the lens of this new soul now?
So these are some of the symptoms of being a walk-in.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is they fade.
Okay.
And this is why it can be incredibly challenging for somebody, especially an interfered with walk-in, even a walk-in that hasn't had interference, because let's say it's your birth family and you don't know you're a walk-in, and suddenly you've got zero interest in these people.
Hmm.
Right. And the world tells you, oh, it's your parents, you need to love them. Oh, it's your siblings. And you're just like, they could be strangers walking down the street. And you could really beat yourself up for not having that connection with them if you didn't know.
Yeah,
Right.
that makes sense.
And usually there's a pain point or pain points in people's lives where, I'll give you an example. Somebody is just like, I just don't want to be married to this person anymore. I don't have feelings for them. I don't have love for them. And some, that's some clients who come to me. And my first question is, when's your birthday?
Hmm.
And they tell me their birth date. And here's the thing. 3 to 4 months before a shift, which generally happens on the body birthday, the natal birthday, 3 to 4 months before a shift, you're going to find a wrapping up. Let's say one soul is leaving and another one's coming in. The leaving soul is wrapping up. If they were in a relationship, they're wrapping that relationship up. Jobs are changing. There's a preparation time that's happening. Person may not know why they're doing it. They just feel this calling that it's over.
Yeah.
And kind of cleaning up their own backyard before they leave. Because if they don't, and many don't, many are interfered with and they don't do it, now you're going to have another soul that's going to come in and say, yeah, this marriage is done. And it won't be done with, there's no relationship there.
Yeah.
It's like a stranger breaking up with your boyfriend for you.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it with the loving compassion that you have.
Totally. So I've also heard, I'm a big fan of Dolores Cannon. I don't know if you're familiar with her work. So she talks about walk-ins a little bit. And when she talks about it, she says that sometimes the situation is that the soul that's here decides they don't want to be here anymore, right? They want to tear up their contract. They don't want to be on planet Earth anymore. It's too much for them. They're just, for whatever reason, ready to go. And sometimes a walk-in will come in for that purpose because, as she says, why waste a perfectly good body?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So do you see that happening too sometimes?
Absolutely. Let's say, and this was the case in with me, that the born-in soul came in with an agenda, right? This is my pre-birth planning.
We all
right.
do,
This is what I came here to experience.
Yeah.
And then the family dynamics didn't allow that. And soul says, well, I'm out. And another soul comes in. So yes, I completely agree with Dolores Cannon on that. And then when you look at what I see, because the people that come to me, they have many embodied souls. I average between 11 and 15 for the people that come to me.
Wow. So when people come to you, they're dealing with the same issue that you had.
Exactly. And so what's happened is that interference, a soul's come in and interference has taken over. Another soul's come in, and these are, I call them warrior souls, because they've been through some pretty rough stuff, and the soul just is, nope, it's viable, and they keep sending that facets in, or to wake the soul up.
Mm.
And
So
what happened,
that's the purpose behind
that's
it.
exactly. So when you've got someone who's relentlessly, like, they're going to do anything. I'm here for a reason. That's a big clue that you're a walk-in. That's a really big clue that you got walk-in stuff going on.
Say that again. Say that again. If you feel like you're here for a bigger reason.
You know you're here for a reason, a big purpose, but nothing's going right.
Okay.
And you're just like, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. This, you've got this drive. That's what drives many people to me, is their soul is telling them something's wrong. And they're like, well, why can't I find my purpose? And it's really about what's blocking my purpose. And it's this energetic soup in the body, which includes interference, which does not have the body's interests or at heart. So what ends up happening with multiple embodied occupants is that they end up time sharing the body.
So is it like, it makes me think of multiple personality disorder. Like, do you think that's misdiagnosed?
Oh, absolutely.
Because
and I know.
What was that show that just came out? My gosh. It was based on a true story. I'm going to have to remember it, but it was like time sharing. The same thing. It was like throughout the day, this kid, and it was based on a true story, could be any one of these personalities, and they would just rotate through depending on what he needed.
Yeah. And like, I myself knew, there was times I questioned whether I was bipolar.
Yeah.
Whether I was schizophrenic. I knew I was depressed. So you've got to look at it, and the body, what the body does is it reflects the energy that's inside of it. And let's say, we'll talk about my case. So there's like seven souls embodied, lot of interference, and only one that wanted to be there. So on the day, or on the times, or let's break it down and just say, okay, by day. So on the days that the primary occupant, the one that's meant to be there, was up front, life is good. They want to be there. On the other days, they don't want to be there. Get me out. A huge symptom of interfered with walk-ins is being suicidal, attempting suicide, cutting, because the occupants that were meant to leave, in their paradigm, the only way to get out is to kill the body.
That makes sense.
So when I hear things like, there's, their life seemed to be fine, and then, they had their struggles, but then one day they killed themselves. My first question is, who was holding the microphone that day? Because the title of my book, Who's Holding the Microphone, is the euphemism for who was up front that day.
Yeah.
Who was making the choices and decisions in the life and in the body? What was their agenda? Did they want to get out? Perfect. I have the microphone today. Boom.
Totally. So, okay. So question, because I keep going back to this multiple personality thing, and I looked it up really quick. The Crowded Room is the name of that show for anyone that wants to watch it, with Amanda Seyfried, who I love. So in that instance, and in a lot of instances with multiple personality disorder, the souls don't remember, or the original born-in soul doesn't remember what goes on when other people are holding the microphone, to use your terminology. So is that the same thing that happens with walk-ins? Like if one of those other souls is holding the microphone and they do something really destructive, for example, and then the born-in soul comes back, do they have any memory of that? Is there any recollection, or is it just like this blacked out period of time in their life?
So everybody's in the body and the microphone's changing?
Mm-hmm.
So my recollection of that was that as the primary occupant, the one that was meant to be there, when decisions were being made by other occupants that were affecting me, it was just this massive confusion of what is happening? Because you think it's you. You're not in awareness that it's not you.
Right.
And this world is very much of, you need to take responsibility and you need to try harder and you need to figure it out. And I was very much brainwashed into that. And so you're kind of like, why am I doing this? I didn't have any awareness that there was multiple occupants. So I was, which was the objective is, I was caught in that vortex of confusion and misery.
Sounds really scary. Like a scary place to be.
It is. And when we first started to talk and you had asked about my history, I said I felt very unsafe.
Yeah.
Incredibly unsafe. And how could you feel, there's what a tremendous source of being unsafe when it's unsafe to be in your own body.
Yeah.
And there'd be times before I knew what was going on, but pretty close to when I was probably within the 400 to 500 days of walking meditation before I figured it out, because we cleared me on day 500. I was having a hard time staying in my body. Like, it was like I was getting kicked out. And I would be driving. I remember one day in particular, I was driving to my naturopath and I knew I wasn't in my body. I pulled my car over. I was in the middle median. And I got out of my car and took my shoes off and I stood on the grass to try and get back into my body.
What does that feel like to not be in your body? What did that feel like in that moment?
It's this woozy, disconnected, it's like there's a big barrier between you and your body. This wooziness, this, like you just, it wasn't like I was looking at my body. It wasn't that at all. It was just this wooziness and knowing that I wasn't in control. That I wasn't the one driving the car.
Quite literally and figuratively.
Right. And to the point that I pulled over and got out and I was in the middle median. It wasn't like I'd pulled off to the side. It was like, this has to stop now. And I do find people come to me as well with that. And it's like they're being kicked out of the body.
So how does one go about clearing out these other souls? Because that's the work you do now, right? Helping other people do that.
Yes, that's the work I do now. So it's addressing the interference that came in and orchestrated with, there can be different interference with each occupant. You deal with each occupant as an individual. Okay, what's everything involved with occupant 1? What's everything involved with occupant 2? What's the interference? And then it's about what agreements were made. It's about breaking or satisfying the agreements so that the agreements no longer exist.
And then once those contracts are broken or satisfied, does the soul just kind of disperse and then it leaves?
Once it can. So once the interference has been cleared, once the agreements and contracts have been cleared, then it leaves the body and you can feel it leave. The people can feel it leave. Because I hold that container, I can feel it leave.
So how many souls are in your body right now? Are you just back down to one?
One. There's only ever meant to be one. The body doesn't function well. The body doesn't function when there's more than one. And one of the biggest symptoms of interfered with walk-ins is when you're having all these weird, random illnesses. And it's like the body manifests the energy that's in it. And let's say you've got 7 occupants, it's manifesting the potential illnesses of 7 occupants. And you've got 6 who don't want to be there, severely depressed, body's manifesting depression. That's why things can shift like that.
Yeah, it makes me think about what I was saying way back in the beginning of this call, I think before we even started, about illness is often comes from repressed emotions, or that we're not on our path, or we're not meant to be doing what we're doing. And then imagine that times 7. I can see how that would just be chaos happening. Right?
Absolute chaos. And so I talk to bodies. That's what I do. That's because they know the body knows exactly what's going on. There's only ever 2 root causes of illness, and one is emotional and one is energetic. If unaddressed, it then becomes physical.
Yeah, I've
Right?
heard that before. It starts in your energy field. It starts with your, yeah,
Yes.
and I talk all the time about emotions for sure.
So you can look at Western medicine, which only deals with the physical. It's never physical. The body might adopt it if it's been around long enough. So if you're not going after the root cause, which is emotional or energetic or both, then you're never going to heal. A big part, doing the walk-in clearings is one part. Many of the people that come to me had their first interfered with walk-in in young childhood. I was 8. The youngest person I had was 4. So now if you look at it, you've spent your whole life coping and adapting to multiple occupants and embodied interference. So, the walk-in clearings take however many hours they take, but what's even more important to me is the integration period, which is the clearing out of all the limiting decisions, beliefs, clearing the body out of all that old stuck stuff so that the body isn't being held into the past with all this stuck stuff, and it can go, it can frequency match to the primary occupant.
Does that stuff tend to linger around even after the other souls have left?
Yes, because you're clearing out the energetic baggage, but then you have all the emotions that were trapped in the body. Right? The occupants take their stuff, but then now the body's experienced it all. And we're only ever meant to feel an emotion, feel it, sit with it, let it transmute and change. And when you are not allowed to do that, all that energy is stuck in the body. You've got to release it.
Makes sense.
So the integration process to me is so important, and that's what I specialize in as well, is putting people in a container where, with modalities and homework, and to identify what are all the limitations here,
Yeah.
because some of it
Wow.
is just so subtle. You just think it's who you are. I had one client and she's like, I'm just a homebody. And I mean, that was a huge heavy for me. That was just like, oh, that is so not the truth. But she took that on as her identity. So through the process, it's clearing all that stuff out so that,
How do you ever really know who you are then? Right?
right. How do you know who your current primary occupant is if you're still owning the stuff from previous occupants? And like this diamond came in November of 2020. I own nothing before that. It's not me.
Wow. So it's this walk-in for you is really recent.
This is when this diamond came in. The most recent facet edition was on my birthday about 3 weeks ago.
So is there like a sense of feeling ungrounded if there's constantly this rotation of new souls coming in?
No, because for me, the facet editions, I've had them once a year. So there's a sense that something's going to happen. And there's a sense of an integration period after. But for me, this one, it was maybe a week. I knew it was coming. And it's when you're not aware. When you're not aware that you're a walk-in, when you're not aware that you have complications, and what the world mirrors back to you is mental illness, not trying hard enough. And you start to own that. You start to think, well, maybe I'm not meant, all these visions and all these things all these images I'm shown of the life I'm meant to live. Maybe I'm not supposed to have that.
Almost like the world is gaslighting you.
The world, well, when you incarnate as a walk-in with a purpose, you're already in a world that's gaslighting you, because one of my biggest challenges has been that very little in the world reflects is even comfortable to look at or reflects who I am. And that's because I'm here to change it.
Yeah.
Not to be part of it. And part of my process has been walking my path, honing my guidance so that it is so strong, and continuing to clear out my body so that I have the strength to look at what's happening in the world, because it's not good. It's not how it was ever meant to be. And continuing to walk my path and say, but where are the walk-ins?
Yeah, it reminds me of that quote that I've seen circulating on social media. It's something like, if you find that you don't belong in the world, it's because you're here to help create a new one, right?
Exactly. And many people are like, they're upset because they don't fit into the world. Rejoice.
Yeah.
If you don't fit into the world, because who wants to fit into what's happening now?
Right.
And if you don't fit in, it's for a reason. It's for a specific purpose. But many people, they've tried so many things to find their purpose, to feel somewhat okay in their body, to feel somewhat like okay just in life. And they got really discouraged. And then they'll hear about walk-in, and something in their body and their soul will be like, that's for you. Anyone listening to this. And there's two ways it can happen. One is that you just have a knowing that, oh my gosh, there's something there for you. You could get goosebumps. You could get excited. I call it my cells dancing, right? When something's for me, my cells start dancing.
I like that.
The other way it could happen is absolute rejection, anger, dismissal. And it's like, what is that? That's garbage. That there's no way. What a crazy woman she is. Well, I'm here to tell you that reaction means you're in resonance. You may be in rejection of it, but you are in resonance with it.
I like that. I like that perspective a lot. And really, it is the most exciting time to be alive right now, right? The earth is splitting 3D and 5D. Like you said, there's so many souls here. I'm a volunteer. You're a walk-in. There's so many souls here that are here to help humanity and help the planet rise in consciousness and usher us into this new world. So it's, you know, if you're feeling, listeners, like Pauline said, that it's hard to look at what's going on in the world right now, it's because you're meant to shift your attention to the 5D, right?
But it's trying to snare you in.
Oh, totally. The fear, right?
It's trying to keep you there. And I know some people that walk their path by not paying any attention to it. Fair enough. That's, for me, I watch what's going on to see where my triggers are. I watch what's going on. I don't immerse myself in it by any means. To also gauge where the global consciousness is at. What's happening tells you if there have been any shifts in the global consciousness.
I think that's really important what you said, because you don't want to hide your head in the sand and pretend like these things aren't going on, but you don't want to be sucked into them, right? You can use them for information, and especially with your own triggers, because everything is a mirror back to you, right? That
Right.
shows you where you need healing or
Where
where,
you're in resonance.
yeah.
Right. So if you've truly healed something, you're not in resonance.
Right.
You're not in resonance with it. You said something just a second ago that I wanted to expand on. I don't know what it was.
It's okay. I know we have a hard stop today.
Yeah.
So, you know, is there anything else you want to share before I ask listeners, or before I ask you to
Yeah.
tell listeners how they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, I do. What I want to say is, if this is in any way resonating with you, you're not crazy. This is your path. To what extent, I don't know. But it's incumbent on you to act. The system and the world as it is doing a tremendous job for what it was designed to do, which is to keep everybody in fear and inaction.
Mm.
You have free will. And when you choose to exert that, intention is so powerful, but you have to take action. You have to say, I don't want this. I didn't know what to do. Keep trying. Keep trying. Yeah, yeah. You're not crazy. The world's crazy. You're not. And it's trying to tell you the opposite.
I think that's so important. And I think that that message can go, it can touch people, even if they're not experiencing these symptoms, even if there's something else going on, you know, like take action, take responsibility for your own life. You have your own free will. You know, I think that's a great message overall.
You're
So
not
can you,
responsible for the shit show that's going on. You're responsible for taking action to extricate yourself from it.
yes, very important. There's a quote on healing that I like that's similar to that. It's like, you're not responsible for what happened to you, but you solely 100% are responsible for your own healing.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to change different actions, different behaviors. If the world has you in inertia and victimhood and inaction, then to get out of it, you need to take action and you need to gain momentum. People say, well, I've tried that. Intention.
Yeah.
Intention.
You're only a victim if you choose to be one. So I feel like we could chat forever, but I know we have a hard stop.
Yeah.
So can you tell people how they can get in touch with you, where they can find you?
Absolutely. So my website is paulinemcguire.com. So in terms of next steps, so you've heard this, you're in resonance with this information. Go to my website. It's called an energetic free will quiz. Take the quiz. It will give you a number from 0 to 21. 0 is you're not interfered with at all. 21 is you got walk-in stuff going on and you have other interference stuff going on. Take the quiz. It will give you you'll get an email. It'll give you a rating. You can be green, yellow, red, or red alert. With the quiz, you will have the opportunity to book a free 20-minute call with me. And when I say it's free, it's free. There's absolutely no obligation. I will use that 20 minutes to answer any questions that you have and give you your next step.
Well, that sounds like a pretty amazing deal. And everyone, if you're resonating with this, I hope you jump on it. I'm going to go take the quiz. I don't think I have a walk-in, but it sounds like an interesting thing to do. So all the links will be in the show notes, so you'll be able to find them there. And thank you so much for everyone for tuning in. Check out the show notes for links to my work as well, my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. Check out Pauline's book as well.
Oh, yes, my book is on my website as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot that.
It's okay. And then please like, share, subscribe, follow me on social media. Change Your Mind with Chris is my handle, just like it is on here. Have a beautiful rest of your day, everyone.